All right. So how are you feeling at this point of the season with the team at 20-1? Did you expect this coming in?
I don't know if I would have told you I'd expect us to be 20-1, but I was excited about our guys. Obviously, we didn't lose any seniors from last year, and we returned the whole roster. So, as far as moving forward and coming into the year, we had a really good off season. Our guys did a great job in the weight room, and we got a lot. We ended the year, as tough as the Morningside loss was at the end of the year last year. I think it really made our guys hungry. They saw how close we were, and we've got a bunch of guys that hate losing, and so I was optimistic that way. But as far as the records, I couldn't have projected that.
Individually this year, who's really come in and shined for you that maybe you didn't expect coming into this season?
Well, I think you could look at it a number of ways. You could just look at the statistics overall. It'd be easy to do that, where you look at guys like Chris Menning's had a tremendous year for us. I mean, he's played at a really high level. He's shot the ball well. He's done a lot of the other things as far as assists and rebounds as well. But a guy like Luke Bamberg, who's been a 3-year captain here, who doesn't always shine on the stat sheet, is a huge piece to our puzzle. And without him, we're nowhere near 20-1. And so those two guys as seniors have had great years. Joey Mitchell's added a big presence for us, I think, defensively especially. But he's also a really tough matchup on the offensive end because he shoots it so well. And you look at another guy like Trey Berg, who had a great year last year. Has just kind of continued with that. But all of those guys, and then it's hard to sleep on Jalen when he's been maybe a Player of the Year candidate and averaging 20 points a game for us. So we've just had a lot of guys contribute in a number of ways, whether it's our starters or bench. So those guys, you can just lean on it. But they've been really consistent. Our practices are normally good. Our workouts have been really good. So you can trust that when we get to the games.
You talk a little bit more about Joey Mitchell. I know you said he's a defensive advantage for you guys, but he's also come alive on the offensive end recently. And moving him into the starting lineup puts Tate Martin on the bench and gives you an added weapon off your bench.
It was one of those, he's coming in, he's just got 1 year. When he came in, I had no intentions of saying, you're going to start, you're going to come off the bench. We hadn't decided that at all. You have a guy like Tate Martin who's, maybe just as far as an offensive point guard, one of the best point guards in our league. He obviously led the league in assists last year. But we've started Joey, and Tate's come off the bench, and I can't say enough about both of those guys. Joey definitely earned it. We wouldn't have just started him just to start him because he's a senior. He gave us a lot. He came in and busted his tail. He bought into Dakota Wesleyan and Wesleyan basketball right away. And then a guy like Tate, who was starting, that's not an easy transition. But you want to talk about a big-time teammate being able to take that and still play at a high level and play as a teammate and not hold a grudge and do all that stuff. That would be easy for athletes to do. Tate's just been remarkable that way, but Joey has helped that as well. Those guys compete against each other, but they're great teammates together as well.
Coming into the season, did you see this 3-game stretch coming up as something that you had bookmarked and you knew it was going to be a tough road for you?
I don't think so. A little bit though. The way the schedule's set up. Last year we had all these teams early at home. On the road right away at the beginning of the year, and we had a tough stretch. We went 0-4 to start in the league last year. This year we had them all at home. We were fortunate enough to get wins out of all of them. But the way the season's developed and the way these teams have progressed, they're very good. And I don't think anybody in the country is going to face a tougher stretch right now in these next 7 days than Dakota Wesleyan is. But I'll tell you, I'll be real honest. We're very much focused on Briar Cliff right now. When you're talking about it being Wednesday and it's game day, as opposed to what we've got after that. We can't control any of that stuff. But I think our guys are really excited about these games. As a college athlete and a basketball player, if you're a competitor, this is what you sign up for. You don't want to play. Not that I should say you don't want to play, but you want to play in these types of games. You want the good games. You want to be able to play against the best teams, and those are the ones you're going to remember and are going to be really exciting. So I'm excited for our guys to see how they respond, because it's going to be an interesting atmosphere down there. It's going to be a challenging one.
Briar Cliff gave you your first real tough test this season. What did your team learn from that game? What did you learn from that game?
Well, I think I learned a lot about Briar Cliff. They came back. They had traveled back from Florida and had to come up here and play us after playing 2 ranked teams. Really, Embry-Riddle was undefeated up until last night, and they played Embry-Riddle as tough as anybody had, and had a chance to win. And Embry-Riddle, #2 team in the country. So Briar Cliff is legitimately very good, and they're the one team that is a solid team. They come at you from a lot of different angles, and different guys step up every night for them. I'll tell you what, we knew this game between Briar Cliff, both of these games, was going to be a big game. Neither team lost a senior from last year. We're very similar in that regard. We play a lot alike, and I think both teams are pretty tight-knit groups. So I knew last year that Briar Cliff was going to be a big-time game for us, both home and away.
You're leading the country in a lot of different statistical categories in the offensive end, but the biggest one might be the assist-to-turnover ratio. How important is that to your team to make sure you're controlling the ball?
Well, I think it's a huge factor. That it could be, you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at just the assists or just the turnovers. Our turnovers we've done a pretty good job of it. It's not like we're setting the world on fire, not turning it over. We turn it over about 10, 11 times a game, I think. But our assists have been so high. And our guys are just willing passers to make an extra pass or an extra 2 passes. But on the other end of that, we've really shot the ball well to this point. I don't know if that's something you can count on every night, but we've shot the ball really well, which leads to assists. So you can look at the assists as a double-edged sword, saying we don't have a lot of guys that are going to look to penetrate and dribble, and go finish. Or you look at it where we're a ball movement team, and that's the way I tend to look at it, is we got guys that are willing passers, and celebrate that. And I just have been really proud of our guys. I mean, that's not nearly as much of a Coach Wilber deal as it is the roster we have. They just are really good with that.
You alluded to it a little bit with the how well you guys are shooting this year. You're on pace to break the school record for shooting percentage by quite a large margin. Have you thought at all about how special this offense actually is in terms of DW's history?
Well, I mean, it's when you look at it, basketball's a game of averages, and things average out and whatever. And I knew we'd come back to earth a little bit with our shooting percentages once we got into conference, which we have. We've had nights where we haven't, shot the 3 as well, but we've had nights where we've shot it really well. I think a big part of it is we've got very confident guys. We've got a number of guys that can make shots, so it takes pressure off of shooters where they don't feel like every shot they take has to go in. But the biggest part of it, I'd say, as far as the stats, from a defensive end, I think we've done a really good job on the defensive end. We just haven't put as much pressure on our offense because we can lean on our defense a little bit. And that's not saying we're not going to go out tonight and give up 90 to 95 points, because Briar Cliff's capable of doing that. But when you can play defense, you can play offense with a little more confidence and a little more freedom, because you don't feel you have to score every time down the court, which is where we were at last year, frankly.
You've talked about it with me a little bit this year. The Corn Palace has been electric at times. Talk a little about the fans and the support you guys have received this year.
We could talk for a long time about that. I mean, that's as far as what's gone on this year. We've got a very special group of guys in our roster and on our basketball team that really buy into Wesleyan, and that's really cool. But seeing the support from the community, and seeing just the genuine enjoyment that people have had watching this group is really cool to be a part of. I mean, you talk about last year when we started. You look at the trend last year with our home crowds. I thought our crowds got bigger and bigger every game. And I think that's due in large part to the way our guys play and, how much they celebrate each other. I mean, people like watching that. And I'm just really excited to be a part of it. The Corn Palace has been awesome. We've been getting 2,500 to 3,000 fans in there. I mean, I don't care if you're a Division I school, Division II school, that's something a lot of places don't have. And our guys are able to experience that, and our fans are able to experience it. Our student body's been tremendous. I mean, the Corn Crib Crazies, I mean, they've had a major impact on basketball games, and you just don't see that all the time. And, in college basketball, a home court advantage when you have fans makes a difference, and I think we've seen that with our crowd. They've definitely had an impact, and, that just goes into the overall thing of what Dakota Wesleyan's all about. I think we've got a lot of people that support each other, and that's what happens here, and it's been really cool to see.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you very much.
Yep. Awesome, man.